Hey, I think we're live. Are we live? I think we're live. We're live. Definitely live. Hey guys, welcome to the Games Tavern Happy Hour. So happy you're all here today. It's a bunch of us nerds. We get together and we talk about tabletop games, news, reviews, and interviews in the tabletop gaming space. And we're so glad to have you join us for the packed show tonight. We have an interview tonight with Hannah Carlin, one of the writers behind the Rime of the Frost Maiden. Co-author, if you will, and a lot of news and discussion as well. So we're very excited about that also. If this is your first time watching the Games Tavern Happy Hour, welcome. Don't forget to follow the Games Tavern on Twitch. It's free and supports all of us here at the Games Tavern. If you have Amazon Prime, you also get a free Prime Gaming subscription, which you can use to show your support. All of us here on the Games Tavern. Prime Gaming subscribers get access to sub-only emotes and also access to a special subscriber-only Discord channel. And remember, you can watch us live on Twitch, as well as all shows are updated on YouTube daily 48 hours later, so you can catch up on all the news, interviews, and reviews that you may have missed. So if you're not, check us out. Look up the Games Tavern on YouTube, and you'll be able to watch us there as well. So very excited to see all that happen and get all that into the discussion this morning, or this afternoon. Sorry about that. Let's see here. Getting going. Big thanks to tabletopaudio.com for providing our music ambiance. We support tabletop audio. You should too. My co-host today is Jeff. Jeff, you want to say hi?
Hi, everyone.
All right. Oh, I love your shirt, man. Totally digging it. I don't believe you're neutral good for a minute, but I believe that you have an awesome shirt.
Totally neutral good. Why wouldn't I be neutral good?
Do you have a good week so far?
It's been okay. It's been really slow.
Slow?
Yeah.
Well, guys, I'll have you know, Jeff has done an outstanding job behind the scenes helping us put this week's show together. He's been working at it for quite a little while now, since last week. And a lot of the great stuff you're going to see tonight is thanks to Jeff's wonderful and amazing efforts. And we really can't thank you enough, Jeff, for being there and doing that for us.
Of course. Anytime.
Oh, man. So with that, let's transition to the news, everyone. And any second now. All right, cool. Yeah, I know, right? Okay, guys, so since the news is up, let's get started with the news. All right, so independent retailers are in crisis. When quarantine lockdowns and social distancing began early last year, the already fragile tabletop retail sector of the U.S. economy, and likely many international tabletop retail economies, went into free fall as well. This message is to tell you a lot about what's going on with the tabletop games, with the independent retailers that are out there, but not only that, to kind of help encourage you to go support your favorite local area game store. They've been there for a while for you. So store closings meant an immediate loss of income for most of these independent retailers. Some shops, those with the ability, took decisive action to continue serving their communities by opening online storefronts, digitizing their available inventory, and putting it up for sale at curbside or by delivery. The Game Manufacturers Association, also called GAMA, the national trade body for the hobby games industry, announced that online sales and online events, including mainstays like Friday Night Magic, were key to keeping businesses afloat throughout the year. Stores were able to open back up for a short period of time, but even now, spikes in, well, the pandemic have brought on by gatherings and other things. They're forcing everyone to close their doors again as various cities and towns potentially go back into lockdown. Around 20% of independent retailers have already gone out of business or will soon go out of business. These guys have normally planned to open up their retail store, and then their city or state goes back into quarantine lockdown. All of their plans of having a safe and social shopping experience goes right in the trash bin. Of the 3,000 to 4,000 independent game stores in the United States at the beginning of 2020, 20% or more are already gone, or will be. And I bring this up because those shops that will be there for you in the future are going to be there because of you, and because you are there for them right now. Future gathering places, social contacts, and some of the greatest fun that most of us ever had came from, well, visiting our favorite local area game store. And all that depends on you supporting your local game shop safely. Now, we're not saying go into the game stores and do things that would be bad for you or unhealthy, but we're definitely saying where you can, you know, please purchase from a local game shop. Please support them. Please let them know that you actually care about them too, because they definitely are struggling right now. Jeff, anything you want to add to that?
No, definitely thing. I've seen several stores barely make it through. Some of our local ones have been lucky enough to still get good patronage, and were able to, with the restrictions placed upon them, open up enough gaming space to keep the doors open for the most part.
And maintain social distancing too, which is the real
Yes.
challenging part of this. And not only that, they almost without a shadow of doubt. I don't know about globally, but I know definitely locally on the East Coast here in the Washington D.C. area, many of them have had to go into some kind of online sales
Yep.
option.
Yep.
Otherwise, they're just doomed. And for some of these mom and pop shops that have some very senior folks in them, they're great at the modeling and stuff, but they're all thumbs when it comes to online marketing.
Mm.
They're really challenged there. So if you can reach out to those shops and see what you can do to give them a hand. Um, and that's just basically some things to let you know that 2020 has been a dangerous year for independent game stores, and whatever you can do to support them, it really does have an impact right now. All right, moving on. Dungeons and Dragons, the new Unearthed Arcana has been released with Gothic lineages. Very excited to see that come to play here today. It's going to be really awesome seeing this take part. Um, I was reading through this earlier today. I was kind of surprised by some of the stuff in there. It allows you to transform yourself into a creature of the night. You've got playtest options. I've linked the link below in chat. Your D&D character can become what's called a Dampier, a Hexblood, or a Reborn. Looking through some of this cool stuff, it's very interesting to see. The Dampier is a form of what do you call it? Kind of half part vampire. Somehow in your lineage, in your past, you had a some form of undead as part of your background, and so you still have some hungers and some other effects from that. I won't go too much into it because I don't want to steal your own excitement from reading through it.
So
But
this so
yeah,
this
go ahead.
isn't curses like werewolfism or vampirism itself. This is straight from your past, from your family, something that you live with.
It's a
Is that
background per se. Yeah.
yeah, interesting.
Yeah, so origins, stuff like that. So character origins, and then there's some other effects that are in there. Another part that they brought up is Hexblood, which is if you have either the influence or a background lineage with a hag, this is where that background would come in. And there's some factors that come into play there. And then there's even discussions in there about a ritual that could make you into a hag. However, it's an irreversible transformation. And then once that happens, you pretty much become an NPC, unless the DM somehow rules otherwise, which would be really, well, I'm not sure how I feel about that, but that's an interesting take. I could see some very, very interesting dark Gothic games that way, Gothic horror. Um, and then another one, I think Josh may be interested in this, is the Reborn. Death isn't always the end. Reborn exemplify this, being that individuals who have died yet somehow still live. I think this is a retake on something else that came up once before that I think Josh was experimenting with
Yeah, yeah.
behind
That
the
feels
scenes.
this feels like that first character archetype, or not archetype, subtype that he was going for, that he swapped out of pretty quickly. That was also in, I think it was also an unearthed arcana. So maybe I wonder if they took the same rules and tweaked them to be more generic instead of just for the rogue.
Yeah, it's entirely possible, especially with the new origins trait. So we're interested in seeing how origins now become another thing, in addition to classes, backgrounds, archetypes, stuff like that.
I'm all for that. Definitely all for
Yeah,
that.
it just adds more flavor. My concern is it going to become game breaking, or is it going to become more of a distraction than something that's going to add to it? So far, after stuff has come out of Unearthed Arcana, I've been very impressed with how Wizards has taken the feedback and made it into something that whereas on the surface we're looking at it going, I don't know, man, this is very nerve wracking. That's just how I am with the unknown, I guess. but when it gets published in an actual book, by that time, it looks like they've really done their homework. They've figured out and mathed it out and had a whole bunch of things that people mentioned were game breaking already, and have sealed those gaps as best they can, and made a very interesting output. So I look forward to seeing this. If you guys are testing any of these things, I would love to hear uh, what you guys are looking at with some of these things, because I think that would be interesting. So feel free to make comments on anything you see in the news today or anything we've discussed. Excited to discuss that with you guys as well. Um, some of the people are already commenting on losing yourself to becoming a hag. That would be very interesting. Yeah, definitely some interesting stuff there with these backgrounds. So, all right. Moving forward on the next thing, we now know that D&D Beyond has updated their dice even further. They now have a dice. It's now possible to share your dice rolling. So the game log now shows some stuff with that. Yeah.
No
So
more,
if
no
you're,
more fudging that dice, eh?
yeah, no more digital fudging that dice anyway. I love rolling actual dice. I have a dice tray right here. My position is, if I have to worry about you telling me the truth or not, playing the game when you roll your dice, probably we shouldn't be playing. However, for some folks, especially when you're new to a table and you just want to know what's going on, this is a great way to share it. If you're using digital dice, the game log is there. It's very easy to It's very easy to use. It's very useful. You can find some of the various things with that. Everyone now has access to the digital dice open beta. It's available to all users as of today. Everyone will have access to test it out and give D&D Beyond feedback. And the game log also lets you see the history of those rolls and from other characters in the campaign. To see rolls in the past, all you have to do is scroll up into the history of the game log. When you find the roll you're looking for in the past, you can open it by clicking the result. So what does that mean for you? So what that means is, you're trying to remember, well, what did I roll for that damage? What did I roll for my saving throw? Did I actually make that saving throw? Or wait, did I dodge that? I don't remember. You can scroll back up and there's the log of it. You'll also see the game log in the combat tracker for encounters that have linked to campaign in the encounter. Now, we know this because Monday, we tested all this ourselves during the offline Monday game that we run on the Discord, which is always awesome, by the way. So if you have not tried it out, definitely try it out. If you're not on D&D Beyond, this is a great time to check it out. The game tracker, the combat tracker, and the encounter builder the encounters for the combat tracker that I used from the encounter builder was fantastic. I got to say, it was cool seeing everybody roll the dice. And then the only problem is it was so cool and new and everybody wanted to see it that I had all these extra rolls happening that weren't requested. So it stacked up the log. So don't be surprised if your players just start rolling stuff on there at first just to see how it works, and try to get that out of their system before you start really using it. But we did definitely use it. It was absolutely great. Do you use D&D Beyond outside of the streams themselves, Jeff?
Outside the streams?
Yeah, I mean, I know you use it on stream
no.
because
Well,
we kind of require it.
This is actually my only D&D game. The rest of my games that I play are other games in D&D. So, I do play another D&D game, but that is a 3.5 game.
So you're seeing other games on the side is what you're telling me.
Oh yeah, I can see like 4 other games on the side. I'm a equal opportunity gamer.
Well, do you want to talk about the next one?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the next one, big reveal. I think it's kind of coming up. It was one of those that, like, when you look at it, look at the cost that they set. They set a very low cost, so we knew it was coming. They were going to do it anyways, but they're doing it in Kickstarter, and that is Savage Worlds for Pathfinder. So this is the Savage Worlds game world system being brought to Pathfinder with a Kickstarter. Having an $8,000 funding basically indicates that they are going to do it almost no matter how much money they make on this. But this is just a way of showing interest and also allowing people to get in early and get maybe a good deal. That savings off the bat instead of the MSRP. It'll from Paizo, of course, from Paizo. Focus on creating 2 box sets: the Pathfinder for Savage Worlds core rules, as well as the Rise of the Rune Lords adventure path. If you're new to the Savage Worlds, it's a flexible system that can transition from a narrative theater of the mind to a detailed combat with a crunch to it, as much as you want. $200 right now is going to get you what is shown on the top half of the screen, which is just the core rules box set.
That's a
Not
lot
just
of stuff too, man.
Yeah, that's not just there's a lower end for just the core rules itself, but that box set gets you everything there on the top half, and then for an extra 100, so for 300 total, you get everything that's shown on the screen as well. If you wish, there's other add-ons, and they're burning through their what are those things that you get whenever you hit milestones? They're all
They're Kickstarter.
Yeah, I know, right? Like I'm blanking on the word for it.
Rewards. The
No,
rewards
it's
or
not
the
stretch goals.
stretch goals. Oh
Stretch
yeah,
goals,
yeah. Stretch
yes.
goals. Yeah.
So far, the last one that they just unlocked was some virtual tabletop, basically add-ons that Paizo's going to develop. The last two, they haven't marked it on their page on the Kickstarter yet, but they have now unlocked virtual tabletop Foundry, and then they've also unlocked virtual tabletop for Fantasy Grounds. So those two systems will have basically this entire system pre-genned and ready in it, and all you have to do is basically buy the license and you'll have access to that.
Chav186 asked if there was going to be miniatures in these boxes.
I don't see much miniatures. It's all character cards and books and adventures and all that, and tokens, but no miniatures for this one, unfortunately. Which is probably why the price are the. I mean, it's already been out for. It's been going for maybe a week now, and it's only at $250,000. Only $250,000, right? For a system like Savage Worlds.
$250,000, so 250,000.
Yep, just past the 250,000 mark.
Okay. It may be one of those things that if you're in there and you're pledging and they're asking about stretch goals, you could actually recommend miniatures. I mean, no one would be mad about that if there was amazing miniatures in this box set, I'm sure. Right? Yeah. Wow, that is a whole lot of stuff, and the map is huge too. It looks like, so
yeah,
kind of excited about that.
Yeah, it's going to be a Paizo production, so it's going to have all the quality that you would expect from a Pathfinder game. And this system, this Kickstarter has about 20 days left, so plenty of time to make a decision or to look at it and for yourself. There's no rush or anything like that. I don't think they have any like early birds things that you'd have to jump on or anything like that.
What's the part about Savage Worlds, and why is that such a big deal?
Savage Worlds is mostly because it is outside the normal fantasy realms. It is different in many regards because there's several different worlds. That's why it's Savage Worlds. One of the most popular, Flash Gordon, has been recreated in Savage Worlds. Deadlands, which is a Western themed setting, which is Deadlands is the one I know the most. That's the one I've always heard people talk about and stuff. But there's all other types as well. Yeah.
That actually makes complete sense now that you say it. Flash. Oh. Moving on from Savage Worlds to sci-fi, since we already brought it up. Star Wars Legion Republic Specialist Personnel expansion is now out. You can check this one out on the link that we've dropped in chat. There you go. So everybody has it. Similar in many regards to last week's droid expansion, within this expansion, you'll find some generic clone commanders who can lead an individual unit as a personnel upgrade or your entire army as a commander. This one also comes with 3 new commander cards, which can be used by any Republic commander. It's pretty exciting to see that come into play, and give them more options. Meanwhile, you'll also get a clone medic, a clone engineer, and a clone comms technician to add any dimensions to a unit with a personnel slot. The Republic Specialist personnel expansion is releasing alongside the Separatist Specialist expansion, and you'll see this on, I think it's February 19th. Jeff?
Yes, February 19th is both this one and the other one. They will both release together, which is pretty normal when it comes to Fantasy Flight. They like putting these out in packs because they're both kind of mirror images, like you're saying.
And you can really see the difference in all of these groups as you look at the medic versus the comms engineer or the engineer itself. I think the engineer has extra padding and stuff for explosion dampening. You can see the commander looks at some kind of hologram that's on his hand.
Yep.
And then you've got the medic who looks like he's hunched over a casualty.
He actually has a red cross on his shoulder pad.
Is that a cross or some other kind of red symbol?
It might be some other type of symbol, but yeah.
That's absolutely cool. We're going to be doing a little bit more Star Wars, I think, this year on the Games Tavern. So this kind of stuff makes me want to buy miniatures and use miniatures for that role play as well. Probably not my smartest move, but sounds like a lot of fun. We'll have to see if it's possible. Let's see here. Coming up next, we have yes, Orlocks, and you and I were going round and round. Are these new Orlocks, or are these the same old ones I've seen before? And
I knew they were new.
Yeah, they're definitely new. Oh my gosh, look at these gorgeous models. Gunners are, Orlocks are some of the hard as nails gangers. They are the prototypical, like, standard gang. They're the ones that everybody looks to, that does pretty good at a little bit of everything. But in particular, Orlocks have gunners. They focus on rapid firing guns, and they do have a variety of close combat weapons as well. And these particular models, all of which are ladies, are some spectacular representations of those miniatures in a way. I'm looking at them on my screen off to the side here. In addition to that, the Rhodes Sergeant is getting an upgrade to their weapons, such as the one here with a heavy bolter. And then there is also a sniper option. The release is to be determined, but as soon as we know more, we'll try to get something out and probably out on the Discord as well. So.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things to take here is that if you go and you look at their existing the plastic models that came out, with the new Necromunda from Games Workshop, the Orlock models all kind of look the same. So this is going to really add some not just diversity, just differences that is really going to make things stand out and pop. And also the models look amazing. The weapons look absolute. I think the weapons look better than the models, really. Or than the figures. So definitely looking forward. Good. I love to see Necromunda still pumping away, still gaining steam as it comes back. Wonderful game.
Yeah, and look, the one all the way on the right there, you can see the scarring.
Yes.
And the scarring really is good because it adds the effect of, that's why she has a bionic arm and a bionic leg. That's actually pretty cool.
Yep. Now, what will be interesting is if that's a sprue.
That would be interesting if they did that.
Is that a sprue?
Yeah. What are your thoughts, Chad? Do you think that's a sprue or that's going to be a metal mini?
I think they're all plastic. Their current models are all plastic. All the Orlocks.
Oh yeah. Well, everybody's saying. I got some people saying sprue. That's going to be interesting. Well, that is definitely something I look forward to. I may have to pick some of these up. Oops. And hey, man, this one's all you, man. You get to lead this one. You found this beauty, and frankly, I know you've got a passion for it. So go ahead.
All right. So from Portal Games, which is a nice little, it's pretty good gaming company out in Poland. They have recently gained the license to do a new Dune game. Now, this isn't your normal Dune. This isn't the Dune game from Avalon Hill from the 80s that was just re-released, I want to say 2 years ago now. Yeah, 2019. This is a new kind of thematic, story-driven game. This company, Portal Games, in partnership with Gale Force 9, Legendary Entertainment, Herbert Properties LLC, and Genuine Entertainment, is producing this officially licensed board game set in the iconic Dune universe. Um, Now it's using Portal's award-winning Detective, a modern crime board game, which is a bit different. It is not your typical models and figures and resource management. It's much more of a kind of a whodunit, like I said, narrative with investigative properties, story-driven adventure game. It's gonna it puts 1 to 5 players, so it has the ability to be played solo without anyone else. But who's really gonna? Most it gives that option at least, um, as you are in the highest stakes unfolding on Arrakis.
Now, is this one going to come with miniatures?
No, again, this is one of those games that it is not about the miniatures. It's about clues and investigation. And there'll be kind of. It's not quite like one of those line boards that you'll see, but it's sort of like that, right? You're gonna have to put pieces together in order to get to the solution. And right now, it's sitting at a quarter. It's supposed to come out late 2021, which is going to be after the movie, I believe, because the movie is supposed to be coming out March, maybe. Still, I'm not 100% on when that. I know it's coming soon.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but this is, and we don't have it up either. But also, this goes in line with the RPG that was announced back in November. That's also coming for Dune, a new Dune RPG, which we could talk about next time, possibly.
And if you haven't looked up the Dune movie trailer, you definitely should look
Oh,
up the 2 minute plus trailer
uh,
because it's it's just something else. I mean, you can't, especially the finale at the end where the sandworm comes up and you're just like,
and you're
oh.
looking into the eye of the sandworm. It's
Mm-hmm.
the oculus of the sandworm, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that's kind of what a movie like Dune in the modern day would have to do. It's a story that's already known, so it's got to rely upon other assets like its acting or its graphics or maybe a new telling of its IP, like in this board game. That's really going to drive interest rather than fear, rather than the unknown, because it is known.
Mm-hmm.
Now we got to tell. Now we need ways of telling the other stories, perhaps. So this and the RPG provide that uh, outside the main storyline.
Yeah, yeah. And then, you mentioned that I think you mentioned it's based on the award-winning Detective, a modern crime board game system.
Yes.
But do you think this will be more of a detective like crime solving thing, or do you think it'll be more of a political intrigue style? They've just kind of rejiggered it a different
No,
way.
I'm leaning towards it being a. There's almost no information on what but it makes sense for it to be more of a political intrigue using the So the Detective, a modern crime board game, is what the game previously that they used. They're just using the same system. But yeah, I could see that easily convert over into a political intrigue, of working with multiple partners or trying to build a web of contacts in order to get stuff accomplished.
Yeah, I just couldn't see this being a detective game and more,
No.
because Dune is all about the intrigue, the political
Yes.
intrigue that came in
Yes.
that. Well, man, that's gonna be killer. I'm kind of excited.
Mm.
Um, Next up, moving forward a little bit here, we've got our Kickstarter roundup. But before we jump into that next thing, let's talk a little bit about Kickstarter's 2020 review. So,
Huge.
yeah, I don't know if anybody knows this, but Tabletop Gaming had a fantastic 2020 on Kickstarter. I think that, the pandemic may have had some influence on that as people were stuck at home going, I think I could use some more board games. And a total of 237 million was raised, representing a third of all the money raised on Kickstarter's platform last year in 2020. That's a whole lot of money. And not only that, but a record number of tabletop game projects were funded. Over 3,163 tabletop games projects were funded. Only 1,319 did not reach goal. So when you figure in that over
3-1, Reed.
almost a 3-to-1 ratio of funded projects versus unfunded projects, pretty solid. Pretty
Reed
solid opportunity.
Reed as a businessman, how
Yeah,
good is it to get a 3-to-1 success ratio
that
in the
is,
business world?
as a businessman, I have to say that is massive, massive.
Huge.
Now, we can go into things like about, okay, now they've got funded, they got initially funded, they made some success. Is that now kickstarting their, because the whole point of Kickstarter was to kickstart a business as well that is repeatable or has staying power. Not in every case. Sometimes it's about making that one board game. But 3,163 successful projects, a 3-to-1 ratio of success versus failure, that is a phenomenal success rate for any startup or any small business that's just trying to get their one product out. So great job, Kickstarter, for helping set the progression of that and the various different groups that have successfully funded. Our hats off to you. And for those who didn't reach goal, hey man, hopefully you learned some lessons. Or hey everyone, hopefully you learned some lessons and you get another shot this year. And let's see you successful. All right, so why don't you kick us off with the Privateer Press?
Yeah, Privateer Press also hitting the Kickstarter page with their new Iron Kingdoms Requiem. This is their standard tabletop RPG that they have been putting out for many years now, over 20 years of history with Privateer Press and this IP, being, of course, War Machine and Hordes, but brought together in the Iron Kingdom as their RPG. It's award-winning world. The latest edition is coming to 5th edition rule set, in which they're going to combine this fantastic setting with the world's most popular role-playing game system. Available in this Kickstarter will be not just the rules, but also a monster nomicon featuring over 80 monsters, both old and new, from their 20 years of world building, appearing also in this 5th edition rules. Some of them for the first time in the modern era. Um, and then finally there will be a adventure for levels 1 to 4 named The Legend of the Witchfire. Right now they have an early bird special. This product literally dropped today. I saw the announcement as it went up on YouTube from Privateer Press, and the first I think it's 2 days. We got about 50 something hours left of the early bird special, where you can save about $10. And then you'll get, for $100, you get all the books plus a GM screen. So everything you see there, in addition, a GM screen for $100, which is a pretty good deal for basically a fully fleshed out RPG. Um,
And it's
uh,
not like they don't make the miniatures for it too.
yes, yeah. There are miniatures, just not with this Kickstarter.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they make them for their other games for like
War Machine and
War
Hordes.
Machine and Hordes. I mean,
Yep.
so I mean, we might see some new miniatures come out because of the Monster Nomicon.
Yeah,
It's
very
always stuff too.
possible.
Yeah.
This is going to be a shorter Kickstarter, though. Most Kickstarters you see are 28 days, 4 weeks. This one's only 16 days. Like I said, open today, and it'll be closing the end of the day, Thursday, 11 February. So
That's very interesting that they went short with this one.
yeah, I mean, I believe it's already hit. It smashed through within an hour. Yeah, it's almost double. It's almost at 200,000 already, and it's only been going for 5 hours.
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
Privateer Press is already a solid, tabletop miniatures and wargaming company, and to create an RPG based on their world isn't probably a far stretch for them. I'm betting this Kickstarter, is helping them add to what they were already going to do very well
oh yeah,
when they went to release this. A
and it,
16-day Kickstarter just definitely kicks the buzz up to the next level.
and again, this isn't the first time they've done the RPG. They're just this time they're converting their RPG, which was in, I don't remember what the rule set that they used previously, but they're converting it and they're going to push it out in the 5th edition system.
The D&D 5e system?
It doesn't specify. I think it's
It's
using that
gotta
same.
be. It's gotta be a
It's
5e.
using that. Yeah,
Whenever
it's a
somebody says 5e, they're not referring to anything else, but because they can't say D&D.
yeah. It's like other games where you'll see the 5E at the top. It's
Yeah.
it's probably going to be in that same. Though I will say there is a game that I can think of right now that is near and dear to my heart that is in its fifth edition that doesn't use fifth edition.
You talking about Vampire?
That one is two games then.
Okay,
Two
what's
games.
the other one?
Legend of the Five Rings is actually in its fifth edition.
You really think they went to Legend of the Five Rings?
What? No.
No. Okay. Okay.
I'm just saying
Okay.
when you say fifth edition, there are other games that are in fifth edition that aren't fifth edition.
Okay. All right. Just making sure we're not on anything else here or there. So.
Just trying to roll you around.
Yeah. Yeah. Just trying to spook the daylights out of me. Hey, why don't you take the next one too? I mean, you helped put together the whole
I think
Kickstarter
I
thing.
think
Why don't you just go
yeah.
ahead and do it, knock them out, and I'll just sidekick
What?
you
Just
to
just
this
do
one.
just do the rest of the show. Got it. I got you.
Yeah, yeah. Just kick in those last 5 minutes there,
Yeah,
bro.
yeah, I got you. All right, so we just talked about how successful 2020 was for tabletop role playing and tabletop gaming in general, or tabletop gaming in general and tabletop role playing. We just talked about tabletop role playing, new game from a big company. We go to a smaller company. This is Reggie Games out of Italy. However, and the reason why I added it on here, Primal the Awakening is almost at $2 million. What's the word?
Funded.
Not
It's
funded, but pledged. two
pledged.
million
Yeah.
dollars pledged. It's insane. That's almost the high. That almost matches the highest game in all of 2020 already. This might be the highest fund. This could be already the highest funded game of 2021. And as has been, poked and mentioned many times, does it have miniatures? Oh yes, this game has miniatures. It has massive miniatures. That
Yeah.
monster. It's a fully cooperative deck crafting boss battler board game. So it is mixing both miniatures. Where you're going to have a big monster in the middle, your characters that are going to be surrounding them, and then you're going to do like a deck building. So what is so you're gonna pull and it's 1,200 cards are in the box set. So when we're talking about deck building, like you're almost never gonna be able to have the same experience multiple times.
The replay value on this thing is
Yeah,
massive.
the base game is set for 4, but inside of the Kickstarter is a lot of expansions. One of the expansions being a 5th player, which is usually key. Very often, 5 is the magic number for some reason in gaming. A 4, just you always seem to be leaving someone out, but 5 always seems magical. It's a setting itself up. Though it is set to close soon. Sorry we didn't catch it last week. I went and looked. I just plain
I
missed
didn't
it.
even see it last week.
Yeah.
We were both looking for stuff last week.
But it closes on 6 p.m. Eastern Standard here in the U.S. At next Tuesday, the 2nd of February. So in 1 week, this already closes. So it could easily break 2 million and go towards 2.5. Um, Most of its monsters that are in here, so your heroes in there are about 40 to 50 millimeters tall, which
No,
already
the heroes are 35 millimeter scale.
35.
Yeah, yeah, 35 millimeter scale. Yeah.
The monsters are 60 to 90 millimeters. The base monsters, the normal
Mm-hmm.
monsters, and then the guy on the box, that's a 145 millimeter scale dragon that comes in the base box. That is a massive monster. And going through their Kickstarter, looking at these pre-rendered images of the models that they have set, great detail, amazing. These are not just a standard cookie cutter dragons. These are all over the place in their style and kind of their background. It's just wonderful. Now here's the catch: it's expensive. $170 for that box. You're getting
Yeah.
a lot. You're getting a ton of stuff, but and plenty of people are getting it, of course. And then if you want everything, if you want the whole shebang, you're looking at $300. But it comes with the base game, uh, 3 expansions, and also the fifth player expansion. So you're getting 5 expansion or 5 boxes worth of stuff for just $300, which is still a really good deal when you consider all the miniatures that is coming with all that.
The giant dragon alone is probably worth $150.
Oh, very easily,
Yeah.
very easily.
Yeah. And then a 1200 card game in addition to that, plus the miniatures.
Yeah.
And the detail on these miniatures is off the charts too.
Oh, it's
Yeah.
ridiculous. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's all just everything looks amazing. They if you go to their Kickstarter, they have a full layout of all the cards set out and all the placemats and all the things in the base box, and it takes up your entire table just to lay it out the whole game.
Yeah. We did have a question in chat if they say what the materials are that these are made out of. We don't have anything yet that because I'm looking through it because that was one of the things I was trying to figure out is what they're made of. At this time, I can't tell. There's nothing in here indicating what they're made of. If it looks like they're going to be 3D resin printed models, if not um, some of the new resin injection molding that's coming out. Um,
I,
I
I
I
would I
don't think
would
this is going to be on sprue based on the way I see the cuts
no, I don't
for the
think they're gonna.
miniatures.
There's no way that they sprue this. There's too
Yeah,
many spines, and it's just.
yeah. It doesn't really state
Yeah, it does state all
where
miniatures come pre-assembled.
pre-assembled. So it's very likely it's a resin cast. I doubt they're going to be metal because the weight alone would make shipping
Oh,
ridiculous. So there's no
it
way
already. I'm pretty sure it says plastic somewhere, or it says
resin, or it's going to be a 3D resin print of some sort.
now. Given how much they're making on this, they might spring for higher quality because that's what happened with the BattleTech Kickstarter 2 years ago. Because of the interest in how much they ended up making, they were able to upgrade to a higher quality. So it's very
Mhm.
likely that they might not have that locked in yet.
Yeah, it's entirely possible. I mean, they could go to plastic injection moldings or polystyrene. The minis detail, it just screams, and the way these are cut, because there's things when you're doing molding and stuff like undercrofts and undercuts that you really can't do 2-part molds or even 3-part molds in some cases. So this is going to be some next level stuff if they wind up doing injection molding
Yeah.
outside of a resin.
And it's great to see stuff like this coming out of Europe. Like
Mhm.
this is the stuff. So this is something I would have expected out of a U.S. company.
No, I think Spain and Italy have consistently
Really?
produced high-end miniatures and stuff like that. Yeah. Spain is almost a go-to for a lot of this stuff now. Uh,
Oh wow! Actually, now that I'm looking closer, this looks to be another one of those like short run. It looked like it was only on Kickstarter for 14 days.
wow.
14
Wow.
days, and they got
Two
a hundred.
plus million, almost $2 million, and
Yeah,
they probably will hit 2 million at this point too.
it's not even been up for 14 days. It's only been up for 8.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
That is killer. So if you want it, definitely get involved and get your pledge in as soon as possible. All right, moving to the next one.
Last. All right, so we started off with something big and crunchies, and we've gone deep. I wanted to come back a little simpler. I thought this was really awesome looking. It's done really well on Kickstarter for what has been being asked of it and how much it's gotten pledged towards it. This is the Paper Apps Dungeon by Gladden and Beep Ya Games. It's from a guy out in Utah, and it's a very simple design. It is one of those little pocket notebooks that about yay big, that would fit in your pocket, that you can take around with you. And it gives that opportunity for travel or just gaming on the go when you're not, when you're sitting on a bus or when you're sitting in a line and you just want to do something to pass the time. It comes with a pencil, one die, and a 50-page little booklet, with each page being its own floor of the dungeon. And all you do is you roll the die, you move on the board until you interact with something, and then you follow the rules. Super simple. I thought it was innovative. I thought it was great. It's just one of those simple.
It's
Uh,
Sudoku for Dungeons and Dragons players.
yeah,
This is what this is. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I dig it.
it's got where was that? It's got it's in its final week. Unfortunately, again, now that I'm here, I will be keeping closer eyes and watching out. But it closes midnight on Monday, February 1st. So next Monday is when this closes. $5. $5 gets you the whole thing.
This kind of reminds me of the stuff I used to make when I was in elementary school.
Yeah,
Just
he used a
yeah.
Python program
Did he?
yeah.
That is so cool. And do you do a dungeon like every page or?
Yep.
Oh
Well,
wow.
it's a floor. Every page is a floor of the dungeon.
Okay. Okay.
And then he has right now he has 100 unique books. So that's 5,000 floors of unique layout.
Oh
Um,
my gosh.
oh yeah,
Wow.
it's really cool. Um, Monsters, treasures, teleporting to the next floor or wherever. It's very simple gameplay. It's built and planned and built here in the U.S. It's actually going to be manufactured local to the guy to the creator in Utah. So um, very reasonable. It's one
Wow.
of those. It's one of those things that I expect to probably see at a game store right there next to the checkout in a few years.
Well, it definitely is a great thing. I could see, this also being a great thing for kids to keep them busy too. You can sit them down and if they don't like coloring books, this is their opportunity. Or if they're too old for coloring books, or if they just don't want to do coloring books that day, this is something you can do to keep them intrigued, thinking, and engaged
Yep,
on something. So, oh yeah,
100.
and one of Dirt Track Chick mentions in chat road trip games. Yeah.
100%. Yep.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I could see this being a great road trip game. Exciting as that is. So moving forward, let's see what else we got here. Oh, I think that's it. Yeah, that is it for the day. So we're going to go take a quick 10-minute break. And when we return, we will, we're going to be interviewing Hannah Carlin. Hannah Carlin is an amazing writer and tabletop RPG writer as well. And she's one of the co-authors behind Rime of the Frost Maiden from Dungeons and Dragons. So we're going to be right back after the break for our interview. So we'll see you in just a few minutes, guys. Hey, we're back, everyone. And as you can see, I have Hannah Carlin with me today. Hannah, thank you so much for coming out and spending some time with us for this interview. Can I ask real quick, what part of the world are you in right now?
I currently live in Maine.
Oh, in Maine. Okay.
Yeah, we lived in Seattle for several years, and then we left at the beginning of COVID, and we moved here, and we're about to pack up and head south. So,
Yeah, the Maine winter wasn't doing it for you?
I repel good weather, so it hasn't barely snowed here at all.
Oh, wow.
As soon as I leave, it'll be like, a few weeks from now, we'll leave, and it'll just like snow for a month straight.
Oh, really?
I just repel good weather.
Oh, wow.
It's just a curse.
That I did not expect to hear.
Okay.
Well, thanks for doing that. We just got done with frozen rain down here in Virginia, so
Where in Virginia?
we're in Northern Virginia, just outside of DC. So
Like Alexandria?
well, just outside of DC. We're just gonna leave it at that.
Okay.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Yeah.
Very familiar with that area. So,
are you? Well, anytime you're in
like
DC, you're welcome to stop by and hang out with us in person. Love to have you.
Oh, thank you. It's a great area. We've traveled there. I used to go to conferences in DC all the time. So
Okay, excellent.
I love it.
Excellent. And as you and I and Chet from Tech, our Tech Goblin Chet, he's awesome. We're talking. We know that you would come down here, but it's all so we can actually meet your husband.
Oh, it's totally fine. I know you guys just want to meet me to like really meet Corey. It's totally fine. I get it. It's totally fair.
Yeah. So you're a writer and a tabletop game player as well as a TTRPG writer. Which came first, the writer or the gamer?
The gaming part. I got started playing tabletop in the early 90s because I couldn't figure out math well.
Okay.
And my uncle, who's a big D&D nerd, was like, this might help you. Here's stack 0. And
oh, really?
That's how I kind of learned math. So
okay, that's
that sort of happened. And then there was like kind of a drop off because I liked GURPS and nobody else liked GURPS in Georgia in the 90s. So then when I met Corey, we kind of picked up D&D again and it became like a big thing. So
oh, really? Okay. So you switched off from that. So your first game was GURPS. That was the thing.
AD&D.
AD&D. It was AD&D. Okay, I did hear that correct, and then I misunderstood when you said GURPS.
GURPS just throws everybody off. Nobody expects anyone to own up to liking GURPS. It's okay.
There's nothing wrong with GURPS. I think GURPS is a great system. It's a system that can, it's designed to be a system for anything.
I know. That's what's so fantastic about it, and everybody hates on it.
Yeah. Is that your favorite one to play?
GURPS? No, I will say that probably for the last 6 months or so, Blades in the Dark is pretty much the only thing that I love.
Really?
So much. Yeah.
Really? Would you like to play some Blades in the Dark?
Yeah. So I am in a Blades in the Dark game, and I can remember on Twitter, people that I know talking about these games that just affect them and stay with them, and these characters that just they feel like they know and they're their friends. And I never really experienced that until this Blades in the Dark game.
Really?
And now I get that. Now I get why people get so emotionally attached to their characters. I'm always like, hey, whatever, if you die in a dungeon, that's cool. Pull out the next character sheet and keep going. But now I get why people are so attached.
Yeah.
And it took Blades in the Dark. D&D has never, at least up until now, never done that for me. But Blades in the Dark did.
Oh, wow. It's always interesting when you can see that happen.
Yeah.
From your transition there, as you were doing these things, you played in Blades in the Dark. What's your favorite game to run? Or at least your RPG to run. Is it?
It's gonna be 5e.
5e? D&D 5e?
Predominantly because I like theater of the mind in a 5e setting where I don't have to worry about you having to do the math for you. With people that know kind of what they're doing and kind of know how their character sheets work and how the math works. I just like to have simple combat, and I could run 5e all day. So I'm
Okay.
actually running a couple of 5e games in Spawn of the Cyclops Con next month from Goodman Games.
Is that that's a virtual con?
Yeah, next
Okay.
month. So I'm running a couple of 5e games for that. So
You can hype them. Go ahead, hype it.
it's just Spawn of the Cyclops Con is at the end of February next month. And it's like 3 days of playing different games. A lot of it is playtest material. I'm running a never before played Goodman Games like big bag in guy. So that's what I'm doing. So you
that sounds like fun.
It's just insanity. That's all.
so
Probability that your character will die is pretty high. So.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You know that sounds like Dungeon Crawl Classics, which is
that's how we like to play.
Almond Games. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there an RPG you've not played or run that you would if you had the time?
Alice is Missing.
Alice is Missing. Really?
Yeah. Nobody. I haven't. I've heard of people playing it and having a good experience. In a way that seems similar to 10 Candles, which I thought was really
10
engaging.
Candles is great.
Yeah, so I feel like Alice is Missing, if that's kind of in the same vein, I would be really interested in that. I don't know, it just seems unique.
I'll have to check that one out. I think Grant Ellis was talking about that one not that long ago, and he's on our the Velkin Weave show, and you know he's a lot of fun to talk games with. Oh yeah, he's a lot of fun to talk games with. I get to see him in action every week because of this channel and everything. So, but he was talking about that I think not that long ago. I think it was on Twitter maybe he was talking about it. I'll have to check. So where did you grow up? Like, was it Seattle area or?
No, so I'm from Atlanta.
Atlanta, Georgia.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Corey, my husband, is from Seattle. And so when we met, I was in grad school and he wanted to move back to Seattle. And so I was like, sure, that sounds great.
So you were in grad school. What was your grad school? Yeah.
So I was getting a PhD in public budgeting, which is a facet of political science. And
no wonder you went to DC a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. Did a lot of traveling with the poli-sci public administration department. That was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it a lot, but the field is really small. And if you don't graduate from one of the top institutions in the nation, you're probably not going to get a tenure track position. And so you're going into a lot of debt for a career that you can't get at the end of it. So
as they say, PhD stands for piled higher and deeper.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. And I gotta say, because a lot of my personal experiences and my background influences the way I, both structure and run my games. And I have a lot of, background in an analysis background, but I've done analysis on everything from politics to economics to military combat capacity and so on. How do you think that your experience, I mean, obviously you're a writer now, and anyone who's gone to grad school does a ton of writing, as you know, right? How do you think that some of those things that you learned in grad school or even your work experience, has that impacted your writing per se?
Yes.
Do you want to elaborate?
Yeah, I can.
Okay.
That's totally fine. It was a yes to give me a second to come up with a really good segue.
Okay.
But grad school. So betrayal is honestly the takeaway that I took from grad school. Sorry, you were probably hoping this was going to be a really great interview, but it's slowly spiraling.
No, it's all right. You'll be fine. You'll be fine.
Betrayal was like this major takeaway. I had a really horrible committee, and I had terrible advisors that I think were dealing with a lot of their own personal issues that they really projected onto us. And so there were several people in my cohort who were struggling, and it was just a lot of drama coming from the people that should have been looking out for us, and it wasn't a great environment. So I'm studying about coups, and I'm studying about tyranny, and I'm studying about hostile takeovers of economic systems, and I'm watching people implement these same, rhetorical devices or manipulative trademarks through the department. I came away from that thinking, God, anybody in any situation can just be a complete and utter crappy human being.
That's how tyrants are born.
That's just how you build villains.
Yeah.
So
and is that how you build your villains now?
I usually build my villains around a central action I want them to be able to do. So Matt Colville did this great video on creating like action-oriented monsters. And it's this, this whole thing on being able to create new ways for them to interact with the party, with the environment, and new reactions for them that make more sense maybe than what the monster manual kind of wrote.
Not just a cold generic bad guy, but something that thinks and feels and stuff like that. Yeah.
Like if you've got like a typical horde, like his example is like a goblin king kind of guy is going to be very based around using his goblin minions. And so all of his actions should kind of be geared to utilize them instead of, just worrying about multi-attack. Anyway, I like to do that with my villains because I think it makes them more holistic people. You have really complex people who do really horrible things. And when you reduce them to just this really terrible thing that they do in this one scenario, you eliminate all of that additional complexity in those layers that make them more unique and more interesting. So I don't know. I just want to.
You make them real that way.
Yeah.
You give them depth. Yeah.
Yeah. When the dragon turns and like says something to you, I don't want it to just be like, don't steal my awesome stuff in here. I want it to be like, I see into your soul and I'm about to touch you and you're going to panic and then you're going to fire. That's what I want to happen.
Yeah. There's a statement out there that says, I forget, I don't know who the person who said it was. And I if someone out there knows who that is, by all means, tell me, because I would love to hear it. Behind every really great villain, there is a tragedy.
Yeah.
There's a tragic story behind them, And the one suggestion I often give is Darth Vader. He's the iconic villain that everyone knows about for the most part. And you really find out a lot more about his tragic backstory, about his love, his loss, and his sink into what's the word? The seduction of the dark side of the Force, I think is the best way to describe it, and what it cost him as part of that process. And then his only redemption was the guy who his redemption was throwing the Emperor down that conduit or whatever it is that smoked him at the end. But there's a whole host of villains that you just know they're bad, but when you can see the ones with the tragedy behind them, they become something you almost feel sorry for them at the same time that you have to do something to stop them. Yes. When you have that moment of empathy, it touches you in a way, but then you're like, but see, you still destroyed this whole village of people and I can't quite let that go. Yeah. And so now we got to kill it. You're like, you cut down a tree. I must make right with the world. So I like that. I think that's interesting. Like if you just think of Lolth and just be like, wow, she's the spider goddess demon lady, then you don't think about her chaos and like how deep that runs into all the horrible things that she does to people in Menzo Baranza and just to mess with them. I love it. It's crazy. I love it. Well, that's because she is crazy. That's the best part. Yeah. But if you reduce her, but she's chaos. Like I think the thing with Lolth, her chaos is what is so fascinating. Because to have a truly chaotic, like I really will destroy my own people just for fun. That's a whole new depth to villains and D&D lore. Let's see here. Some would say you need a Sith to destroy a Sith. A Jedi should just hope to heal the villain's wounds. Aw. Wow. That's a very deep statement there from Luke Thomas. So you obviously have this deep research-based and depth of knowledge that has influenced your writing and some of your development of the things you do in both the writing and the TTRPG space. Now, I have to ask, what inspired you to become a writer? I mean, you were already doing it as a PhD candidate. You were writing at least your dissertation, and you were probably already gearing up to write whatever else your research brought you. What made you decide, I think writing is a great thing to do?
So to me, writing was always this inevitability. I will just be a writer at some point in my life. I'll either write, articles to pub, or eventually I'll get into a government job and I'll write big reports. And like, I'm just going to have a field, a position in a field where I just am writing. And when I left my PhD program and we moved to Seattle, I switched careers and I wasn't writing anymore. And all of a sudden, I felt like I had to start writing. And so I started writing fiction. And it took me years to get the courage to finally, I would query it and nothing would happen because it's, it's trash. But it took years for me to try to figure out like what was wrong. Because to me, I was just like, well, I wrote this thing and I don't know exactly what's wrong with it, but I'm just going to keep shooting and maybe eventually something will stick. It took me a long time to go, okay, no, let's get the good feedback to figure out how to make this better. And I don't know, I've just written a lot since then. So
how's your feedback loop work for you? Because I find that I'm one of those guys that I write something and outside of a grammar check, I really don't want the intent of what I'm doing changed. However, what I find is that my intent isn't always conveyed by my words appropriately. How does that work for you?
So I get that.
Yeah.
I get that entirely, because what we think we wrote and what someone else read don't always align.
Yeah.
And so I tend to ask very specific questions, like, and this has come from years of doing this wrong. Years of making tons of mistakes have brought me to the point of asking very specific questions.
Mm-hmm.
So if I want to know, how does the plot develop? Does it, is it flowing? Is it whatever? How did this happen? How is this executed? Does this conclusion make sense? Like whatever. I have to ask very specific questions because I'm not interested in your meta feedback on how you would rewrite it and you would do it. Mm-hmm. I want to know what you think about this very specific thing I did. Mm-hmm. Because I'm confident enough that I know enough about how to write something that I didn't screw up something big. Mm-hmm. But having really good people that read your stuff, your beta readers, or your editors or whomever read your content, having people that read it that know how to communicate with you is just vital. Because if your communication strategies are not aligned and they're going to be talking one way and you really just are having a Charlie Brown moment, it's not going to get any better.
Yeah, I'm one of those guys that really wants the direct feedback. Like, just tell me what you're really thinking. It's okay. I don't have feelings. But I do have feelings. Don't misunderstand me. Like I make jokes about it, but I have a thick skin, so I can take it. But most of the people I talk to that are trying to give me feedback are trying to talk around it so that they don't hurt my feelings per se. And then I don't understand what's going on and it makes them more frustrated. How's that work for you?
So my husband reads a lot of my stuff. And everything I write, I try to usually vet through him, which one time he was like, you've sent me 15 emails, like within the past 48 hours of different things you've written and revisions you've made that you want me to read now. Like, I can't do this. This is too much. But what we figured out was that he typically is either good news, bad news, or like, I know this is the thing that's worrying you the most. So let's talk about the thing that's worrying you the most and break that down for a second. And then we'll move into whatever else is going on. How you killed off this guy, that works. I like it. But the resolution with all these other ancillary figures, that's messy. We got to deal with that. Or last night, I just got some notes back from a beta reader that I had never worked with before. And I was very nervous about it because I have a desperate need for people to like the stuff that I do. And so I'm waiting for her notes and she finally starts. And I mean, it's like a full 500-word email, just where she brain dumped all of her thoughts about it. And the first thing is, I can tell why this isn't selling, but I think I know how you can make it sell. And I'm like, okay, okay. So I'm wrong and I'm doing something very bad and I haven't figured it out yet, but you know what it is. Yeah. So that's good enough for me. All right, all right. The goal here is to sell the book. So if you know how to make that happen, I want to talk to you.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I try not to take anything personally about it, unless it's like I fundamentally disagree with how you wrote this thing and I want to completely change it, and then I'm just out. Like, not even in the conversation anymore.
Yeah. So. Yeah. That's always a challenge when it becomes, hey, you're killing my baby there. Yeah. Were there any books, like, because you're writing fiction, I'm assuming, mostly.
Yeah, I mean,
based on the TTRPG angle and stuff like that too. Was there a fictional book that's influenced you that you've read over and over again, or was there a series that you liked?
So I work with wizards on like an R.A. Salvatore project. As far as like having read those books more than once, and probably the way that you're suggesting, and knowing quite a bit about that.
Anything you enjoyed to read. It's not work related. Something you read and you went, I love this stuff. I want to do this,
Have spent a lot of time reading those books.
Okay.
And so it's something that I feel like I saw through to the end. And there are great stories in that series that I very much love and care about. But outside of that, into like less RPG focused fiction, The Grapes of Wrath was pivotal for me when I read it the first time in like 8th grade, because that was a really good glimpse into suffering and how suffering can effectively be personified by people. And then that summer I had this really insane reading list and that's a story of itself. But I read like The Grapes of Wrath, The Bluest Eye, Tree Goes in Brooklyn, all of these kind of heavy hitters. And I think I ended the summer with like Rebecca, the first time I read Rebecca. And so it's all of this tragedy and all of this sadness and suffering. And I just really I felt this whole human experience of suffering far too young at a far too important time in my like emotional and mental development, that like talking about and understanding suffering is very important to what I have to say as a writer, really, in any context.
Yeah. And how have you, I mean, like evoking suffering, you can describe the physical feelings or the arc, but how do you really convey suffering in a way that somebody else really feels it? If that's been a challenge for me for quite some time. So I would love to hear your thoughts on how you've been able to evoke that.
So what I learned through a lot of trial and failure is that I tend to go to really dark places in my writing. I tend to have like infanticide, like very dark human experiences. And I wrote a short story that got published last fall. And when Corey was reading it the first time, he's like, you can't have this lady kill her baby. Like you just can't, you can't do this. And I'm like, but I need that to happen for this other thing to happen in the story. And he's like, I get it. I know why you're doing it. I'm just saying you can't do this. This isn't good. Like you're going too far. So totally he's like, bring it back a little bit.
Huh? Yeah.
Yes. Right. So like I'm too heavy handed in how I deliver that suffering. And so what I do what I'm learning to do, I should say still a work in progress, is dialing that back. And I figured out how to, like, she doesn't kill the baby. She abandons the baby and the baby's picked up. The baby doesn't die. And that's like a different experience. It's more palpable to deal with, a lady abandoning a child than like someone killing their child. Whereas I'm like, but I want everyone to hate her. And he's like, you can do that without her killing her baby. Like, don't do that. So I have to dial it back. So when I start writing and I'm really excited about something, I'm like, okay, take a breath back. If I heard this on Oprah, would I think like, no, that lady's just going to hell and like that's it? Or what would I do? Like, how would I feel about it? And then I tend to dial it back. So
that's a genius way of looking at it. Yeah. And then your revision process also, dials it forward or back as you need to.
Yeah.
That's great.
It's like if this is a ticker on TV and it's just this, boiled down set of events, how am I going to feel? Because as a reader, it doesn't matter if you're invested in my characters up until that moment. If you have a visceral reaction to this, you're not going to continue. I think that's why fade to black is so important for all kinds of trauma and assault, is because people can't like actually seeing or reading something that horrifying is just not something people want to experience.
Yeah.
So
have you ever read The Road? It got made into a movie. It's like a post-apocalyptic story about a father with his son.
No.
And they're traveling this road. I made the mistake of trying to read that while I was in Iraq, deployed with the Army, during one of my off moments. And I got partway through it and I put the book down. I've never touched it since. Being in Iraq is already hard enough. You see plenty of suffering there.
Yeah.
And then reading through that, I'm just like, I can't do this right now. Like, this was just too much. And there was a lot in there that's very all about the end of the world is basically happening. People, the few people who are left are doing horrible things. And
yes.
I just put the book down. I couldn't even finish it. It was dialed forward very hard. If you want to see what forward looks like, check out The Road. It wound up getting made into a movie. I think I forget who's in it. Hang on, we can look that up real quick. We've got the ability.
Well, I wrote it down on a Post-it note, so I'm gonna look it up.
Yeah, Viggo Mortensen's in it. Yeah.
Oh well, shit. Now I'm probably gonna have to watch it because
I'd read the book. I'd read the book. As a writer,
okay.
you understand what I mean with that. Read the book.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
Yeah.
Do you feel like for that experience that you had, if you had picked that book up at a different time in your life, you would have approached it differently and it wouldn't have affected you so profoundly?
If I had read it before the first time I'd gone to war, probably. But it's entirely possible I'd have read just further in the book and then put it down and not touched it. Because there's some harsh things that happen in that book. And I think in Iraq, because of the things I'd already seen people doing to each other there and the things I knew about and the things that from a personal perspective, and it's an interesting question that you asked me, the interviewer. And I'm okay with that. Please ask questions all you want.
I'm sorry.
No. I would say that, there are things I was already seeing on a day-to-day basis that were already, rough. And the book just certainly wasn't helping things. And all I could think of is, why would anyone send this to people in Iraq? Because it was one of those books that, people sent to you to read for, because people were just sending care packages of books over.
Books.
Yeah, we used to get boxes of books sent to us. And most of the time, probably about, the sad part about the boxes of books is more than 60 or 70% of them were books that people just threw out. They thought, oh, well, I'm going to throw these in the trash anyway. And they were garbage, absolute garbage books. Like, how many times, how many Harlequin romance novels are soldiers really going to want to read?
No.
But those came out and we'd read them, not because we thought they were great reads, but because we would just read them out loud to each other and start laughing hysterically about some of the scenes in these books, right? Because you're already in a surreal situation and you're reading about, I won't get into the stories of Harlequin romance, but they're hysterical to us. But then you occasionally get that other 30% of the books that are like, oh, this might be something I might actually want to read. Or, I think I reread Cannery Row while I was out there.
Wow.
John Steinbeck.
Yeah.
I think, that's who wrote Cannery Row. I was always a big fan of his works. And I got to read Cannery Row there. And it just seemed right to read that at that moment. But that's, then again, you also have, situations where it's 2 a.m. and somebody who's brought in an electric guitar to the barracks is like playing out by one of the palaces out on the canals, and he's playing, you know, something that was done by Jimi Hendrix, and it's 2 a.m, and you're just like, and then the next thing you see 2 jackals walk by inside the camp, because this area used to be the hunting lodge for Saddam Hussein, you know. So there are some experiences that have played a role into some of the surreal things that I will probably wind up someday telling my grandchildren about, or not. And in my own writing, because I have a game development company as well that did stuff for modern wargaming, and so we try to integrate some of the weirdness of that and stuff like that. So there's a fair amount of discussions on what is too far and what is not enough. And that's also why, you know, there's a big disconnect, I think, between veterans and veteran humor and mainstream civilians. Is the things that we think are funny, some other people just don't get it, and that's because they haven't seen what we've seen in many cases too, or they haven't spent 3 days getting rained on solid out in a cold, wet mud hole, because field training is where it's at, you know, and stuff like that too, you know, because if it ain't raining, you ain't training, is the statement that we often make, you know. But anyway, moving back to you, because you're the
I actually think that's really important though, and really valid, because you're talking about like shared trauma experiences and how that kind of creates, like, I guess, the brotherhood that you know, you went through. And I feel like people have those kinds of networks for all kinds of shared trauma experiences. And those are really important, and those are things that everybody, readers and creators, have to contend with when they pick up your product. So I think it's really important. I thank you for sharing that. That was really great.
Well, it's made some of the rules of what we have as on stream versus what we don't have on stream for our live play shows. For, you know, I mean, in an adult type story where someone knows what they're getting, you know, endangering children may be part of that. We just don't have anything that harms a child on our show ever.
Yeah.
We can have things in the past that people can discuss, but we're not going to graphically discuss it. Or, you know, like a kid that's a ghost, for example, may be there, but you're not going to have a kid who's actually going to, you know, die. Stuff like that, you know. So it'll be pretty easy for the heroes to either save the kids or there won't be any kids involved in that. It's just that simple for us, you know. And that's because we've seen a lot of things happen to kids, and I just don't want to deal with that anymore.
To be fair, and to kind of piggyback on that, I have 2 children, and after my son was about a year old when The Haunting on Hill House came out on Netflix, like that new show that everybody watched and everybody was super into it. I had like, I mean, we watched everything up until like the last episode. I don't think I actually finished it, but we had to go weeks between episodes because, you know, Corey was watching it with me, and I was the one that was so excited about it. And I had like a panic attack in the first episode because things are happening to these children, and I had a newborn, and I had no idea what that was, because I could watch any kind of horror. I could watch gore horror. I could read gore horror and splatter porn. And like, I can do that. That's fine. And then all of a sudden this kid's like crying, and I'm having serious emotions about it. And I had no idea how to deal with that for a while. And I tried watching it again recently just because I was like, I should, you know, power through this. It'll be fine. And you know, I'm not in that place anymore. It's fine. I've had another kid since then. And I couldn't do it. I made it to like the 4th episode, and I'm like, nope, I cannot engage with this in this way.
Yeah, it's one of those very, very interesting changes that occurs once you have a child of your own. And you can explain this to people, and there's only a few people that get it. Those people who get it have very big hearts. But outside of that, until you've had your own, like there was a joke that used to get told that was very funny. What's the difference between bowling balls and babies?
I don't know.
You can't use a truck full of bowling balls and a truck full of babies. And the joke is you can't use a pitchfork to unload a truck full of bowling balls. And it's one of those jokes that was no longer funny to me when it got told. I said it was the worst joke in the world. Please don't ever say that joke again. Yeah. So
oh my God,
Yeah,
that's
so
awful.
we just got raided by big bearded nerd and Dwight and his group, and so just to bring the depression back a little bit, and the trauma, we're interviewing Hannah Carlin. Hannah Carlin is one of the co-authors of Rime of the Frost Maiden, and she's a great fiction writer as well. We were talking about some of the things that we were discussing, specifically how to write and evoke suffering, and we were talking about some of the things that help bring that to us as we're developing our stories. To change the subject just a little bit, as a writer, no worries.
I feel so bad that I asked you that question now.
No. Ask all the questions you like. It's okay. And I have 5 kids of my own, so I get it. And I'm proud of every one of those kids. They're fantastic. Thankfully, they're not completely risk takers like their father is.
Yet.
Well, actually, I won't say that's not true. They are definitely my children. Were there any early mistakes you learned from as a writer that you'd impart to others, perhaps, or that you wish you had learned sooner? Like, were there any aha moments for you?
The value of a good outline.
Really?
The value of knowing, like, I feel like there's this, and I mean, I do it too. So like, please don't think that I'm like amazing at this. I love to sit down and say, I want to see where this goes.
Mm-hmm.
Let me just sit here and write this and see kind of what happens. And it was this badge of honor that I could just sit here and I could churn out 4,000 words in an afternoon and it was going to be great. And that was not true. And so figuring out that wasn't great and that outlines would help me and that I was wrong really helped me start to make better content faster, because I wasn't sitting here going, well, crap, now I'm 5,000 words into this thing. And I don't know what to do. Cause like, I thought I was going to be like 8,000 words and I'm short. And now I'm kind of committed. I kind of feel like I don't know what to do. Good outlines.
When you write as a dungeon master, for example, kind of a different story there, right?
Oh, same story.
Well,
got to outline.
It is for you. Okay.
Yeah.
So do you ever have those moments where you're like, man, this would be a great plug-in encounter. I should just write this one. And then you write that, and then you get another plug-in encounter, and then eventually you have enough of them and you put them together as a cohesive story?
So, yes.
Mm-hmm.
I get asked to write a lot of like campaign seeds or like kind of one-off encounters or drop-in encounters. And they're great, but when you're thinking about like, okay, this one encounter that I have to do, right? And it's got to be 2,000 words. Okay, well, I'm thinking about it. And in my process, I don't imagine that the characters just poof into existence in this tavern. Like they have to have had experiences up until then, and they exist as people. And so I'm kind of building on these ideas that I've built for these non-existent characters before and after. Like, how does this encounter help them for the next level that they're going to go to?
Mm-hmm.
And
mm-hmm.
how are they benefited from having done this? Is it just that they killed the whatever? Or is it that they killed the whatever that did something, that released something or helped or did, like, and now they've got an entire people that think that they're amazing. How does that benefit them as a group? And I tend to sketch those things out, and then I'm left with other encounters that could exist. And I tend to just put those in a file on my computer and never look at them again.
Well, really?
Because I just don't have time to. I
need to borrow that file, that set of files. We'll talk later.
We can chat.
Yeah, I've got a project for us both then. I work a little differently. So I do build outlines. I mean, outlines were a big part of, me being published as well, and in some other completely different parts of my life. But in the TTRPG space, I do outlines. I do those. But there are times when I see this scene and I think, man, that would be a great scene. And I just build that encounter, right? I was like, have that as a plugin. So if there's a part where it fits and it works with the story, I'll do it. If it doesn't, it doesn't, and I keep it in my DM toolbox, and that's happened a few times. And lately I've been putting them together and starting to, release them to the wild after I've play tested them a few times. And I'm putting one together right now involving well, I won't say too much about it, but it involves a scarecrow in a cornfield, and it's very scary.
Nice.
Yeah. And there's a little mini story built into it that the players can kind of figure out as the way they go through, but it's not big enough to matter. Like, it would be something you could do over 1 or 2 sessions, but there's a story there that is going to make players think like, oh, what happened here, as they find different things and figure stuff out, and then stuff starts happening. Right.
Yeah.
But it's obviously not something I would run an entire campaign on. I mean, do you do entire campaigns as an outline, or do you do, like, say, arcs?
Depends.
Yeah.
On what I'm trying to accomplish. The very few times that I've tried to run campaigns as the DM, you get like half a dozen sessions in, and then their hours changed, or somebody's kid picked up a new sport, and then they kind of fall off. So I've never run anything substantial that far out. So I don't plan that far out. But what's funny though is that you're talking about that and getting these like nuggets, and this like nugget becomes like a little bit of a seed that turns into this encounter. And I wrote, Corey and I both did. I mean, I don't want to say like I wrote it and he didn't do anything, because he did, absolutely.
Yeah.
But Corey and I did this.
Full disclosure, for everybody who just joined us, Corey is her husband.
Yes.
And everyone wants to get to know Hannah so they can meet her husband.
Yeah.
Just so everybody knows.
People don't care about Corey. Is the charismatic one. Corey's the one that's like knows who everybody is and like talks to people and is like super awesome socially. I am a potato. But we were trying to do games. This is like back in like 2017. We were trying to figure out how to write modules, because that's what we wanted to do. And I thought that a lot of them sucked. And so I was like, why can't I just, right? A lot of modules suck. And I'm like, why am I paying for this on the GM's Guild when it sucks? So I was like, why don't I just do a masquerade ball? And he was like, well, why do you want to do a masquerade ball? And I was like, because it's fucking cool. So that became Masquerade de Lulth, which is like one of our best-selling like modules on DM's Guild. And then we were stuck at a light one day in Seattle, and there was this sign about like fish in the creek that was below us. And I was like, why would you have to defend a fish? And he's like, what? And I'm like, why would you have to defend a fish? Like Silgar, like, what if Xanathar didn't know that his minions were worried about him, and so they replicated Silgar, and they had this whole pond of Silgars, and they had people guarding them, and then one day they hired your party to come guard them, and he's like, you're crazy. But that became our Xanathar Guild missions that accompanied the Waterdeep campaign. That was part of it. And so like these like nuggets turn into things. And never disregard a nugget. Like that's the meat of it.
That's what gets it started. That's what kicks the story over. Right,
yes.
Right. What would you say is your past project that is your most successful or popular based on these nuggets?
Rime of the Frost Maiden is probably going to have to top that list.
Oh, really?
Merely because when I sat down with Chris Perkins and Bill Benham and to talk about this project and like what I was doing, I was like, for my chapter, can I just build like an entire TPK section? And they were like, yeah. And I was like, okay, that's right. That's it. That's awesome. And so I did. And then they were really happy with what I did, and it worked out. But that was a really great experience in that regard. I had, so when like you get, when you are given information to write things for game companies of large sizes, sometimes they have really robust outlines for you to follow, and sometimes they have 57 words.
So
wow. I wrote about 22,000 words off of a 57 word prompt. and then there was like a map. So that's all I had, and it was fine, and I totally did it, and nobody wanted to do that, which is how I got stuck with it. But then I looked at it and I was like, this is fine. I'm just going to do this whole section over here. You can die. It's easy. And that's what happened. And they loved it. So it worked out really well for me. But yeah, Rime of the Frost Maiden was probably the best, or the most successful.
So far.
Thus far.
Yeah. You have plenty of future ahead of you.
I have a long night ahead of me. I have a lot too. It happens.
Well, I definitely understand that. Is there a game that was made, or a game or a module that was made by someone else that you would absolutely recommend above all others?
A game or a module, like not just like a 5e dependent?
No, any game you like. I mean, like you can make, if you want to call it an adventure module, great. Or you could just say any game in a tabletop space.
So anything,
board games, card games, tabletop RPGs.
Anything tabletop is going to be Blades in the Dark if you've never played it, because it's bomb.
Oh, I've played it. We have a copy of it over there. We're actually working on doing a Blades in the Dark stream.
Oh, really? How's it going? How's your night?
One in? We'll talk later.
We might chat. As far as 5e, I don't want to give you the wrong name, so I have to go check my downloads real fast to make sure that I don't miss.
No problem.
Because I hate misspeaking. My purchases.
She's going to be very careful not to share her screen right now.
Very careful not to share my screen.
Yeah,
that's accurate. My library, that's where it goes. I don't get on DM's Guild enough. This is the problem. Dino World by Celeste Konowich, available on the DM's Guild, is phenomenal. If you want Jurassic Park as a 5e module, you got it with Dino World.
Okay.
And like, that sounds strange. I know that does. You're going to be surprised because it's great.
I think I'm going to check out Dino World. If for no other reason, I know a particular player that would absolutely adore that one. And I would run it just for her. So, because she would make it so much fun to do that. So, let's kind of make this a little more fun for a moment. So let's do.
Hasn't been fun for you so far?
It's been no. Excuse me. A little less serious. Let's bring the seriousness off a bit. Make this a little more.
We'll dial it back.
Yeah, I think what's the word I'm looking for? A little more, not lackadaisical, upbeat. So we're gonna do you remember the old ASL trope from online discussions? We're gonna do a little thing.
Location?
Yeah. Well, we're gonna do this. ABC, alignment, background, and class. What would your real life alignment, background, and class be?
Probably true chaotic. Maybe chaotic neutral.
So you're a sociopath? Okay.
Maybe a chaotic good.
Probably.
It depends on if my children are present. Definitely way better of a person when they're around.
Yeah.
Background. Ooh, background. Probably like a scholar background.
Cloistered scholar? Sage?
Sage, probably.
Okay.
If I had to pick. And then class. Probably a failed fighter. Like a fighter where like strength is really, or dex is their dump stat. Like not a good fighter. Like I'd love to be a good fighter, but I'm not a good fighter. Okay. I'm an intellectually a great fighter, but that's not how fighters fight. And I'm not cool enough to be a bard. So if I would be a failed bard too. I would be really bad.
Are you sure you wouldn't be a wizard?
Would I be a wizard?
Yeah.
Probably not. I'd probably forget too many things. I have a really bad memory. I have a photographic memory, which is really helpful.
Sometimes
right?
You don't have film.
But sometimes it's like there are just these whole gaps, but yet I know exactly what like textbook pages look like when I was in like 5th grade. Mm-hmm. But there are these strange gaps, and especially after I had kids, like that just totally crapped on everything. But
we used to call that the baby was borrowing the brain.
Right.
Yes. Yeah.
You get it.
I do. If you walked in and you were a character and you walked into a curio shop, what trinket would you find?
I would be a sucker for any kind of writing utensil.
So a quill and ink.
Mm-hmm. Anything, especially if it looked like it was probably cursed, I would like happily and without any kind of investigation check pick that baby up and start going.
Okay, so if the ink had like a skull and crossbones on it, perhaps
if it literally
has a
said
slightly
"Don't
reddish,
touch me,"
a slightly reddish tinge, and it required a few drops of your blood with every writing, but the writing would flow and the ink would be so beautiful.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I wouldn't question at all whether or not the ink was really my own blood. Never question it.
Never.
No.
As a DM, what would the tavern name be? The players would all meet in.
The Bent Elbow.
The Bent Elbow. I love that. Bent Elbow. Okay, we're actually creating a list now. We're going to be starting to ask people stuff like this on every show, and we're creating a list of names. Yeah,
that's great.
If you didn't have your characters start in a tavern for the start of the campaign, how would you want them to start?
At a prayer circle or some kind of like religious experience where they were all like summoned to be part of, and then their contact NPC is the person who is either leading the prayer circle or imprisoned at the prayer circle.
Imprisoned in the prayer circle. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I totally dig that.
Gotta have options.
I think that's a completely genius idea, and I won't steal that from you publicly.
That's fine. I totally just made it up, so you're free to.
No. I love it. I think you should integrate that into something. We should talk. Okay. I think there's something there. So you're going to be doing stuff at Cyclops Con for Baldwin Games, and you're excited about that. What are the dates for that?
Like February 26th through 28, I believe. Mm-hmm. But I'm going to look at my calendar. Yeah, 26th through 28. I was right.
26th through 28 of February?
Yes, of February. Spawn of Cyclops Con.
Okay, Spawn of Cyclops Con, 26th through 28 February. You can potentially get in on a game with Hannah Carlin.
Yeah. I'm running a game at noon. I think it's called Pit of Annihilation. And then I'm running a game that night. I think it's at 10 o'clock Eastern. Both of these are in Eastern. Forgot when that one's called, but it's also of Annihilation. So if you look for my name or look for Annihilation, I'll pop up.
Okay. And where can people find you on social media, Hannah?
On Twitter, you can find me at Stop That Old Woman. The A is missing in that, but otherwise, that's pretty much where I live.
Okay.
I do the Blades in the Dark. I'm in a group. We just started our second season on Wednesday nights on twitch.tv/Saverick, SAVERICK. And then on Saturday nights,
I saw him in chat too, by the way.
Yeah, he was hanging around being a weirdo. And then we do a Star Wars campaign on Saturday nights. So I've never played Star Wars. I know nothing about the extended
Star Wars Edge of the Empire from Fantasy Flight?
No, KOTOR.
Oh, really? Knights of the Old Republic.
Yeah, I think that's the right one.
Okay.
Saga Edition. Oh, he's right there. He said Saga
D20
Edition.
Saga Edition. Okay.
I don't know anything about anything.
So the D20 game system. Okay.
Everybody gasps a lot, and I'm just kind of like, are we going to die? I don't know. Because I don't know who these people are.
We do a little bit of Edge of the Empire on our side of this. So it's always good to see another Star Wars person around. And we could talk about that more some other time. But well, Hannah, thank you so much for coming on.
Absolutely.
From there, guys, I think that's it for the night. Thank you so much for watching our interview with Hannah Carlin. If you get a chance, please tune in next week where we'll have more fun and hijinks on the Games Tavern Happy Hour, where we have the news, reviews, and interviews. And we'll see you guys next week. at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Tuesday on the Games Tavern Happy Hour.